Yeah, welcome to this tutorial section. Today I want to start from where I stopped. That's is a long video which I have made before on React hooks. So I stopped at React use context, which I have little error, and the error is just that I did not import uh the use const the use concept the use context in the user context in my child component. So I'll be talking again uh from the beginning on use context. So the best way is React context is a way of managing state globally. That is how we manage our state globally. State is a data or property that can change in a function or in a component. So how do we manage them? So it can be used to gather with what use state hooks to share between deeply nested components more easily than use state alone. It is more easily using our React context to share data, to pass data from one component to another. So now let me give you a good scenario that talk about use context. Is this? Let's assume I have a child parent component here. I have another child component here. This child component give birth to another child component, and this last child component give birth to this last one. Then I want to pass a data from this parent component to this context here. How do I do that? you know there's a way which I can make use of using props. Props is a way of passing data from one component to another. So I can decide to use props, but now imagine I want to use props. Let me explain how props is going to work. Props is going to send, this is the parent component, we're going to send it to this one first, send to this, before we send downward to this. That is passing through this before getting through this. But when it comes to use context, that is why it is used to manage our state. We can pass data from this place directly to this place. That is just the simple ideology of how use context work. So now, and use context, state could be held by the highest parent component in a state that required access to the state. So there are three things involved in use context. That is, we have to create it. We have to create a use context. After creating, we have to provide the context. After providing it, then we have to use it. Those are the three things, major things, that is important in in use context when it comes to React. So now let's now start the process one after the other. The first one says we have to create a use context. That is, we have to include it at the top of our project by importing it. So I'm going to copy this, then I can have it in my project. I think I will also use effect to let me have use effect too. So it doesn't matter, but I'm still going to use our use effect in my work. So now the first thing is I have created. Then the next thing is I have to create a constant for it, so that I'll be able to export it out to other place. That is why we have creating it by importing it and initialize it. The initializing is by using const equals to user context equals to create user context. So we have to initialize it. That's the first thing. After importing it at the top, we have to initialize it. Now, once we have initialized it this way, we can now provide the use context. So providing the use context is the next thing. Now, context provider. So we have to go inside our return our function by, okay, this is the state we have a state called user and set user, but we want this JCHall to be printed in another component, maybe in a fifth component or in any other component that we have, or in any other files that we have. So that is why, let me copy this state, then I will have it inside my state because I want to provide it. This is what I want to provide. I want to provide this JCHall to some users. Now I need to provide the context. So the way I will provide it is that I will wrap everything inside user context dot provider. That it means that, okay, I'm providing this particular context in another I want to provide it in another file. So let me provide it here at the top. So, but let me create a file that I want to showcase this out, because I've been using all the file here for different stuff. So let me create a file for it and name it use.js. So rfc okay, so I have use.js. So I've created this. So inside my app.js, I want to send this value, this JCHall, to this use. That is why I have the user context provider. The value of what I want to send is this user value. This user is the state, current state, like this. The set state is what we want to change it to, but we are dealing with the current state now, the initial value. So we pass it as user. So the h1 that is here, we want it to print that username first at this place, and this second one we want it to print it again from this used. So instead of this component 2, which they have in their own, I'm going to change it to used. Now the next thing is I have to import this used here too as well. Those are the issues which we encountered the other time. Used. So if we did not do the needful, we'll be looking for where we have made a mistake. Now, but you can see that this user context I've provided here, but I have to export this user context out so that everybody, it can be accessed in other place. So I will need to include export, so it can export to any place which I want it to move to. So now I can now come to this my used to accept everything which we want there. So you can see we have provided it here. The next thing is to use it. How do we use it? I'll copy this one. I'll first of all initialize the use state, the context, and the user context here, then have it at the top. So after having it at the top, I also need to import the user context. Import user context from app.js. I've exported it out from here, so I need to import it here too as well. That is, this is the place which I want to make use of it. So then I will now have my component. I'm passing into this component now. I can easily have it this way and say inside this my used, I can convert this. Okay, let me first of all initialize it inside my function component, because my user is equals to useContext, because I want to use it now, user context. I've imported the user context at the top, so I'm going to initialize it here as well. So since I've initialized it here, I can easily access it here now. Let me use the fragment. So I can print it out here too as well. So the user is already carrying the user is already carrying the value. The user is already carrying the value. So once I check, you can see the one I have for component 5. Okay, I can say use now. Let me change it to use so we can know where we are printing it out. Used, and under it print out the name. You can see under it, this is the name. This is the first one which will print out from the app.js, and these other ones is okay, I can say sending from use. Sending from use. Sending from use. So if I want to make any changes, if I make a changes here to Vic, I will just have to change the state here. Then I'm already seeing Vic here. I don't need to go to my used app where I'm calling it from, and will be having my answer from the state directly. That is how to pass information. The other one is just to show you the full code of how to make use of React context. Now the next one is React useRef. This is another beautiful thing which we make use of a lot, because useRef has two primitive important things that we use it to do. Now, allow you to persist between renders. Number one, it can be used to store a mutable value that does not cause a re-render when update. And the second one, it can be used to access your DOM directly. Now, when it comes to it, number one, does not cause re-render. That is, it, let me just say, the best thing is it help you to track your mutable values. Whenever when you are giving a count now, when you are using useRef to give a count, like okay, you are counting, you want to get the numbers of input, how many times an input occur. So number one, it will not allow you to re-render. It will not allow re-render of the value, and will help you to also keep track of that value. So store the mutable values. That is, we help you to keep the values. If you want to get the value, maybe if the person type 2 times, maybe you are setting an exam questions, and you now say okay, this person should only type 3 times, this person should only type 4 times. Once the person type 4 times, you are going to know. So that is how majorly what useRef to do to track application renders. So let's deal with one example which we have here to track an input value. So if an input type we know the numbers of time the input put a value. So let's start by, if you want to make use of it, you have to import it. That is the first thing first. So I'm going to import useRef in my app.js in order to make use of it. Then after importing it, don't let me make mistake. I should put it inside app.js, not here. Okay, so after having it in my app.js, after importing it, so the next thing is I can create let me create a function. Let me create another function outside this place. So I don't want my app.js to be bulky. So let me create another page and call it ref.js. Let me name it. So I don't want my app.js to be bulky. Ref.js. Let me use that. So inside this place now, I can also, let me just take the importing of let me import it here, which is going to be my use state, use defer. Let me just leave everything there. It's not a must. We can import it and not use it, but if it's giving us error, we can now decide to take it out. So but I don't think we should have. So the function here, instead for me typing, let me copy it and change the necessary things out of it. So I'm going to convert this. So instead of having app here, I will change this back to ref. I think it's ref that we have here. Now what have they done? The first thing is they set an input value. They create a state there. They initialize a state, which is an input value, and they set input value. They set it to an empty string because they don't know for now, and they initialize the useRef to be 0. That is, the current scores should be 0. So they had a side effect to it, so that it should help them keep track of anything that happened. So they make a callback function that count. This count they created from useRef, they turn to 0. They say count.current, that is the current value of the input we have here, equals to count.current plus 1. That is, whenever there is an input value, that is whenever there is a change in an input value, it should count it to be 1. So here now they have to create an input. So the input is going to be a text, that is, you can type anything, and the input value, that is the input value which is here, which is an empty string, which they are grabbing. They should click on change, that is an event, that is, it should target the event and set the input value event.target.value. So it will keep on counting the numbers of values that we have in the input. So anytime you type a word, it's going to count it out. Anytime you count another word, it's going to count it out. So now, after doing all these things here, I have to come to my app.js to import it. Import ref. So here, let me put it at the top. So let me put it at the top, which is ref. So we expected to have this ref at the top here. Now you can see the input here now, and this is the render count, because once we add, where is the ref, once we add, you can see render count current count dot current. So it's going to be telling us the numbers of time a side effect occurs, because we have set the side effect from it using our use state, using our use effect. So if I click on Q, you can see it keep on adding the numbers, keep on adding the numbers. It will be telling us the numbers of time. So that is what they use to set, maybe if you are creating an app that involve username and password, and you can say, okay, if the username is less than 10, it should not submit the username. It should bring out an error if the username is, so those are the things when they get the count, that okay, it has to be minimum of this amount and greater than this. You can use it to track the effect of the input. So that is one of the benefits of using React useRef. The other one is to update our DOM. You can see useRef only return one item. It return an object called current. That is, when we initialize the useRef, we set it to 0. Like doing this, const equals to count dot 0 will allow us to count, and you use the counting, that is the count dot current. Now run to your computer. Okay, so it keep on increasing. So the next one is accessing our DOM. Normally in JavaScript, if you want to do anything that involves JavaScript on HTML, you have to use get element by ID, get element by class, so those things. But we can easily change the DOM. We can easily add a lot of things to the DOM. Like, if you have an input, you can decide to do other things, like making use of the DOM, making use of the useRef in order to do those things. Now let me create another file. So I don't want to alter this. Let me create another JS file and name it ddom.js. Now rfc, okay, which is going to give me the snippet. So now I want to make use of, let me copy the use state, because the importing, which is the first one that is important. Now I want to use it to affect the input, maybe by doing some other things, by adding styles to the input. So I want to do something like that now. So now let me follow their procedure here. Okay, let me just copy everything they have in their function, then I will change the name back. So let me copy it here. Instead of this my own function, now so it's so I will have to change this one back to DOM, because our typing will be taking our time. So I have to change it to DOM. So what have they done? They initialize useRef to be empty, and now the first thing they do here is that they create an input, and the input, they put it as input element. So that input element, they set the useRef to be 0, nothing. Now they click a button link. It should focus on the input. They give it a name to be what? Focus input. And const equals to focus input equals to current input dot current. useRef always work on what? Current dot focus. So it means that okay, when they click on it, when they click on the button, it will show a notification that you are currently on that page, you are working on that page. That is how it is. So if I I'm done with this page, I have to come to my app.js here. I will have to import it. Import DOM. Okay, then I'll come to this place. I will have my DOM here. So once I have it here, if I check, you can see we have it here now. We have the focus input. So if I click on this focus input, you can see that it shows that there's a black signal on it. But for this one now, until I click on the input, but when I click on this, it shows that there is an available of something to do here at this place. And this is not only the thing we can do on it, even we can also change the length of the, you can change the length, you can change the style, you can adjust anything on the DOM. So the meaning of DOM is document object modules. So I can decide to change okay, let me decide to change another thing here. Let me say style dot width equals to, let me change it to 300 pixels. That is, I want the width, once they click on this focus button, the width should change to 300 pixels. So let me refresh. Now you can see the width increases because of what I make use of this style. I can adjust anything directly on the DOM using useRef. So we can decide to do more. Let me test something and say okay, background. You can see now the background changes to red. So we can do a lot of things with useRef 2 as well. So I would like to stop these two projects. You can see the other things they do. They use it to track the input values and etc. So once you keep on playing around with useRef, you can easily use it to access the DOM and also get a tracking record for mutable stuff. So I would like to make this video short, so I will still continue with some other videos on probably React hooks. So thank you very much. Thanks for watching.